Business with Nicole Coco Patrice. Today we are here just trying to find a little bit of balance in some of the media attention that has been given to police incidences, and just the police in general. I feel like as a woman, especially, and as a black woman, given how a lot of the conversation around safety and protecting black women, and police brutality, mostly, most of that conversation has been driven by, a lot by female activism. I'm not saying that men have not been active, but I'm just saying that it just feels like black women were amongst the most vocal and the most, um, you know, um, passionate of proponents of defund the police. And so a lot of those progressive policies in general, not just the defund the police movement, are very much geared towards women. I'm noticing a lot of these policies in general are geared towards women. And it begs the question of how the patriarchy is now propping up a false matriarchy. Um, being a woman and being female and being a divine feminine vessel are like two different things. You know what I mean? Like, not to, be disrespectful of women or females, but we all kind of were born into this, but you got to graduate into the honors program. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of just it just seems like there's a lot of vitriol coming out of women just from all sides of the planet right now. And I trust and believe, I know a lot of it is warranted. I was very angry at a point myself. But there is a healthy balance that needs to be struck between allowing um women empowerment to overrun tried and true um roles of the patriarchy and roles of our male counterparts. And so yeah, like, they didn't have a lot of female police officers until about, I think it was like the 70s or something like that, when they started you know changing departments, and making them more professional and like following more protocols and rules and training and standards. Because before that, police were basically just, hey, Jim, you seem like a good guy, or you seem like, you are upstanding citizen. Come join us and help round up these criminals. I mean, like, literally, that was it, right? You got the fugitive slave laws, you got um all of the things that went on with slavery, slave masters and overseers, and slave patrols, right? And then the police, right? And so we know that history as black Americans for the most part. There's a big debate whether or not that story needs to be told to white children in schools. Depending on where you go to school, where you pay your taxes, you may feel a different way about what kind of cultural identity you're giving your children, right? And so I say all that to say, because I can go off in the weeds on this, but to stick to the point of this episode, because that's a whole nother topic. um there is a fine line between asking people to treat everyone with dignity and equality, and then also having your dignities and your equality and your rights supersede that of the whole, and supersede that of, like I said, the tried and true methods of not just the patriarchy, but of nature. Like, men in nature are protectors, and providers. So if you have a male police force, a very masculine, idea of a police force, right? Whether or not there be female members is not the issue. I'm just saying there are majority men on police forces. It is a male dominated profession. It's a masculine profession, regardless of what's happening. Female officers tend to lean more towards the masculine side when they join the force, or, at whatever time they've decided that that's what they want to be. They kind of have to leave some of those very feminine qualities at the wayside. They may pick them up when they take their uniform off, but it's a masculine profession, right? And so, given that, you can't really add all of this softness to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just some things that just got to be hard, and it's some things that just have to be masculine, and some things that have to be no nonsense. And that's one of those things that you want to have laws, have them be fair, have them, have some flexibility in how they're applied when it comes to certain people who may fall into more nuanced situations. That's why you have judges, and they're supposed to use, logic and empathy and interpret the law so that it doesn't weigh it down more heavily on one than another, right? And so there's like this whole, the whole idea of defunding the police, where it just got kind of too far. And I mean, I even myself was like, oh yeah, it couldn't be that bad. Like, just, take some money out of militarization of police and apply that money towards social services. Especially, I was thinking they were going to offer social services and more training to the police, right? But then you have our Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, and I'm sure it's not unique to him, who has a consent decree that he needs to adhere to, which was part of the 2016 Laquan McDonald fallout, right? The shooting of Laquan McDonald. So you have this Black progressive mayor who, claims to have the issues of the Black community at heart and the safety of the Black community at heart. Hell, he even claimed he was going to have a special task force just to address crime that Black women were starting to become more victimized in Chicago, in a study or some sort of research that just came out over the last, I don't know how long ago the research was or what span of time they researched, but I do remember seeing this. And basically, there's a lot of murders, there's a lot of missing women, there's a lot of things that are happening in Chicago, and I'm sure it's not unique to Chicago. And so I say all that to say that women, we are usually the most vulnerable, especially Black women. Hell, that's all y'all was screaming about, was protect Black women, right? And so who's supposed to do that? I'm really confused at this formula, because if you draw the Venn diagram of people that Black women trust, and I just want to single us out for a second, because we have to be singled out, because we're the people who, suffer under, when the protections are gone the most, because honestly, we don't protect ourselves, and then we surround ourselves with people who could protect us, but then we don't demand that of them, or we give them mixed messages. And so when you say defund the police, but then you also say protect Black women, like, who's supposed to do the protecting, right? Especially if you got out here and you're telling every man he's a threat, every, young adolescent you see on the street, you don't want to look them in the eye, you don't want to say hello, you clutching your purse, you don't want to be on an elevator alone with people, you crossing your street, you locking your car door. Like, y'all want to live in two different worlds. Y'all out here, kiki with Kamala, like, y'all ain't got real problems, because I know your uterus was not a top priority when you walked out the door and saw yellow tape across the street. I know your uterus was not a top priority when you saw that red tape down the street or around the corner from your job. So, like, let's be real here. There was a situation where there was a woman in Chicago where a man climbed through her daughter's window, and she caught him on the way in and shot him. And then, of course, he gets locked up. I'm not sure if he got let out on bail or not, but that it wouldn't be unfathomable, because that's the type of stuff that happens when, you have judges and lawyers and people who don't seem to know the law. Cops go out here and arrest people, and then a judge just lets somebody go who's been a multiple offender or been on parole or on house arrest, and then is still out here doing crimes. So that's the situation with, I believe, the last two men who killed police officers. And so this woman, she shoots him, he goes to jail maybe for a night or so, but then she has her gun taken for her for several days or so until they release it, until the state police release her weapon. And it's like, I'm thinking about that, like, that's kind of messed up, because now, like, who's supposed to protect her? Like, she's at home, and now the criminal knows she don't even have a weapon, and they say he got out because some judge decided to be stupid. Now what is she supposed to do? And so these are the things I think as a black woman, I would be concerned about. But I don't know. Y'all got some strange priorities. So I say all that to say, let's just get into this because yeah, our mayor basically he asked for his $300 million for the budget to for property taxes, but then come to find out that basically he had got the aldermen unanimously voted him down. There was like 30 or 29 aldermen initially who said they would veto it. They would not vote yes. And then the others joined them and eventually gave him a unanimous veto. So he's like batting 0 for like 4 on trying to like take money out of our pockets just blatantly when he's just thrown every little penny he thought he had extra, from a surplus or from COVID funded, and he threw it at the migrant crisis and seemingly is not going to back down from that because, him and JB Pritzker are saying, hey, Trump, you're going to have to go through us if you want to deport people or arrest migrant criminals and things like that. Like, we're not going to cooperate, and we're going to like figure out how to use our time and resources to stop anything you may be thinking about doing within that realm or otherwise. It's like, you can't spend our time and tax dollars on obstructing federal agents, especially if you are taking the vote that you got from the city of Chicago, well, not the city of Chicago, but the state of Illinois as a mandate. Like, Illinois is red. Chicago's the only thing keeping Illinois blue. And to have that kind of nerve as the mayor and then as the governor, Pritzker, is insane. But on top of all that, his budget that was, so now he's trying to balance his budget, and he's got so many things he's got to worry about in this budget. And I think one of the first things he said is he's going to cut the police. And they're like, first of all, he's not very publicly saying this, but someone did some digging and it was like, yeah, bruh, you can't just ignore the consent decree.
I've been here, going on 17 years. I've never seen this kind of vote take place. And I think in many of our lifetimes, we've never seen this. So it sends a message that massive property tax increase he was looking for is not going to happen.
At the end of the day, the state of Illinois is designed, municipalities on property taxes. We have tried to do the best we can to avoid that. However, it becomes a point where some of those things are necessary.
Some of those suggestions we've heard from aldermen in the past 2 weeks included increased liquor tax, increased garbage collection fees, and contributing less to the advance pension payments. Also at today's meeting, members of the Fraternal Order of Police. This is CBS News Chicago has obtained a letter from Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul to Mayor Brandon Johnson. Raoul asking Johnson to, quote, reconsider proposed cuts to the Chicago Police Department. Cuts which would decrease the number of employees charged with fulfilling the department's consent decree. Raoul adds that doing so would place the city at, quote, significant risk of being held in contempt of court. Now, Mayor Brandon Johnson is expected to host a press conference to answer questions about all of these things that are currently happening at the same time. Shooting down this $300 million property tax increase does not necessarily mean that a property tax increase will not eventually pass, but it does force everyone back to the drawing board when the deadline for this budget is at the end of the year. We'll bring you the update from that press conference on the CBS News Chicago newscast at 6 p.m. For now, we're live outside City Hall.
All right. So we have to ask ourselves, what is really going on? So I don't feel like this mayor really respects the police. And given that a CPD officer, Officer Weska, and then Officer Martinez, who recently was fallen on duty for Chicago police, both families asked both the mayor and the governor, Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor JB Pritzker, not to attend their fallen loved ones' funerals out of respect for the family. You would think this would be a pretty easy request to honor, right? But no.
Slain Chicago police officer Enrique Martinez will be laid to rest early next week. And tonight, a spokesperson for the Martinez family is speaking out, expressing their concern that Mayor Johnson plans to attend the funeral against the family's wishes.
Priscilla Ferreira from our sister station Telemundo has more from the 8th District Police Station. Less than 2 hours ago, a
So
spokesperson for the
disrespectful.
Martinez family expressed to the mayor the family's wishes for him not to attend Martinez's funeral. Officer Enrique Martinez, 26, was killed while doing a traffic stop in the East Chatham neighborhood on November 4th. This afternoon, the mayor's office confirmed via email that Mayor Johnson will attend Officer Martinez's funeral services, adding that it is the mayor's honor to support officers across the Chicago Police Department, especially in times of grief. Meanwhile, the family wish otherwise.
Enrique Martinez's family called me up this evening and said they could not do this. They definitely do not want the mayor at any of the functions for Enrique. Plain and simple, to the point.
Do you give a reason?
They just don't want him there.
The mother of Officer Luis Huesca, who was killed in April, was also present and expressed the following.
In this case, our authorities, that they must take care of our police officers, because our police officers, they are servant, they protect. Even police officers are protecting him and his family. Why he didn't protect them? Why he didn't make policies that protect the police officer?
Meanwhile, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker said he will not attend the funeral. Officer Martinez's funeral will be taking place this Monday. Reporting in Chicago Lawn, Priscilla Ferreira, NBC 5 News.
Priscilla, thank you so much. Visitation for Officer Martinez will be held on Sunday afternoon at the Blake Lamb Funeral Home. That's in Oak Lawn. His funeral will be on Monday at St. Rita of Kasha Shrine Chapel in Ashburn. The services will be live on our NBC5 and our streaming channel beginning at 10 a.m. on Monday.
We begin with a developing story tonight.
Okay, and so one must ask themselves, well, why are the family members refusing to have the governor and the mayor at the fallen officers' funerals? Well, when, like she just said, if you don't have policies in place to protect the officers, then you don't care about their lives. And especially when you have the gall to have, an extensive police detail for yourself and your family, your wife and everyone else, but then the rest of the city is just left to suffer and worry. You got rid of Shotspotter, which would have let people know about gun shootings and shootings and things and gun victims before police calls are made, right? 911 calls are made. If you listen to him in press conferences, when he talks about, like the one where I can't remember the man, but there was a guy, he shot at the police first, and then the police responded with 98 rounds. And he never mentions that the man shot first. He never, seems to use the officers' names when he talks about the fallen officers. In the initial statements, I think they finally had to be like, why didn't he say his name? There's just so many instances where you can just feel that there's a lack of respect for the police. Even when I've watched Mayor Johnson sitting or, standing next to Police Superintendent Larry Snelling, I've seen just this. There's just an aura around him of almost envy of that kind of raw, power, that energy that really is just very no nonsense and very much about protecting people with no ego. That's the thing. I don't think people realize that when you give when you swear your life to this city, that is not something to take lightly. Mayors don't really do that. Presidents don't do that. Governors don't do that. They can say they've taken an oath, but police take a serious oath. It's so serious. And you see how many of them pay with their lives. And the fact that so many of us are just kind of casually dismissing their own fears and dismissing their own concerns about, mental health and safety and training and how the public views them and how, they feel like they're not respected in the city and how the city doesn't seem to have their backs. So I say all that to say, I did a little bit of research and I want to ask a question about how the media plays into this on another episode, because this is running a little bit long and we'll get to that. But I do want to point out there was a study that showed that Chicago police officers they're leaving. Like they can't retain enough officers. So the Chicago Police Department is currently going through a little bit of a problem with retention. They having a little bit of exodus, just like many police districts are reporting across the country. It says since 2016, 1 in every 6 cops is no longer on the payroll. That's not good, y'all. Like being a cop, used to be an honorable profession. It used to be, a way to make a good living, get respect from your community, hopefully serve your time safely and retire and live a good life. But it's not really that promising anymore. And especially in light of how the media seems to skew things in the favor of criminals, not giving descriptions of criminals. I've noticed more now. The media refuses to describe people. So it's like, how are we going to help find this person? This person's on the loose or, hasn't been captured, wanted for this. Where is the description? Oh, we can't hurt people's feelings because we don't want people to think that, it's their race or it's their demographic that is doing these crimes, or I don't know. Someone explain that to me. So I want to get to that. But I just want to show you all this. So of about 5,750 officers hired since 2016, about 950 have left. They've served average time of 3 years. 320 now mostly have moved to suburban departments. Almost 90 moved to the Chicago Fire Department, and that's something that other officers have said has rarely happened in the past. City and state figures don't account for possibly hundreds of cops who moved to out-of-state police agencies. And then you got a double whammy of high retirement and low retention of young cops. And then 1,580 sworn-in officers have left of the 13,180 approximately on the force as of September 2019. And so if you look over here, there's some of the reasons that people are leaving. And so you have 5.1 years resigned for medical reasons, 4.4 years resigned while under investigation, 4.3 years resigned due to pension, for a pension, 3.9 years death, 3.9 years resigned other employment, 3.0 years resignation from a leave of absence, 2.7 years of discharge, 2.7 years to accept position with other city agency, 2.6 years killed in the line of duty, 2.5 years resigned family domestic reasons, 2.2 years resigned to finish school, 1.4 years resigned for personal reasons, 1.3 years resignation from miscellaneous other reasons, 0.7 years for termination, 0.6 years for expiration of leave of absence, a little over 6 months for resignation in lieu of termination, 6 months discharge probationary employee, and then 0.1 years job abandonment. So there's, this isn't normal, when you're talking about a profession is needed and used to be demanding of a lot of respect, but now you're getting less and less respect in these big cities because of the negative light that the police get when they have these incidences, or when you have mayors or progressive politicians or agencies or talking heads basically turning them into public enemy number one, when honestly that's really not what's happening here. You have one bad apple and it should not ruin the bunch. That is, and that is up to other officers to hold, their fellow officers accountable for their bad behavior. But at the same time, like, everybody can't be responsible for everyone. And if you don't have a mayor or a governor who respects what you do and gives you the tools you need to do that job, which is ever changing, ever risky, ever dangerous, ever evolving, I don't know what you expect of your cities. They're going to be overrun by crime. You're going to have fallen officers, and you're going to have their families asking you to not show your pitiful, lying face to them and further disrespect the memory of their loved one. They're in this same article, and I think this was a Sun-Times. I think I got the link here. Yeah, this was a Chicago Sun-Times study, chicago.suntimes.com/the watchdogs /2024 /10 /25 / Chicago Police Department Exodus suburbs recruiting. So basically, they just told on Aurora PD, because Aurora PD, which is a western suburb of Chicago, basically had recruited the most cops from Chicago. So it says, of all the suburbs poaching cops, Aurora is number one, and many cops are leaving the suburbs for higher starting pay. According to Aurora, PC, I think I meant PD, 20 former Chicago PD officers have been hired since 2020 to work in the city of 175,000 people. That year, Aurora created a formal recruiting program to encourage lateral transfers. The city had a shortage of 300 budgeted, but 270 on the payroll. Paid $104,000 starting lateral transfers versus the city starting of only $58,000, and which rises to $88,000 after 18 months. In Chicago. So just blowing them out of the water, as you're getting an extra 40, 60K is insane. Yeah, 40, 70K is insane. Some motivated by less stressors and less shootings in the suburbs, as well as pay. And then Larry Snelling of the Chicago Police Department, the superintendent, said, I don't really have anything negative to say about anyone who's actively recruiting. It's been really hard across the country since 2020 to get officers anywhere. If people are recruiting from Chicago, they know that they're probably recruiting the best and the brightest, so I take it as a compliment. You never hear our mayor say something that respectful and that thoughtful about, Chicago officers. So it says 92% of officers say the protests mainly motivated by bias towards police. So so I skipped around here. So there was another study, it's called Behind the Badge. And it was done, I believe, in 2014 or 20, I can't remember. I want to say it was around 2014 or 2016. But basically, amid protests and calls for reform, how police view their jobs, key issues, and recent fatal encounters between blacks and police. And so a sample of 8,000 police men and women from different departments with at least 100 officers were surveyed, and 93% of those officers have become more concerned about their safety. 76% of those officers have been more reluctant to use force when it is appropriate. Now, what does that mean? If he's in a situation, or this police person is in a situation, and they know, per their training, per their own instincts, that they need to use force to protect themselves or that person, the assailant, from themselves, or to protect, someone in the immediate vicinity and the community, and, innocent bystanders, etc. They're more reluctant to use that force when it's appropriate, meaning they should do it, but they're not doing it. You've turned someone who's supposed to trust their instincts, someone who's supposed to act for your safety, into, a pick me, right? Like you got them out here asking, is it okay? Should I? Oh, he looks dangerous. Do you think I should pull my gun out? Is that really what you want your police forces to become? Because that's where it's going. 75% say interactions between police and blacks have become more tense. And we definitely need to get into why that is, because I do feel like a lot of the rhetoric that came out of Obama's campaign and Obama's presidency, especially around Trayvon Martin, kind of blew things up. And I know there was definitely some bad stuff coming from both sides. But my point is that some people need to be a lot more aware of what other people's intentions are, because they're not always on your side, and they usually are playing chess. They're playing 3D chess. And you can't just go, yeah, black man killed, black man says it's wrong, black man telling me hate white men, totally makes sense. No, like maybe there's some nuance there that you may need to take a step back and look at, because if we all become racist and we all become hyper vigilant and hyper sensitive or hyper violent or reactive, then I mean we're all going to be, a George Zimmerman. We're all going to end up being, I I can't think of the officer who Derek Chauvin or whatever his name is. Like, you have to understand that there's nuance to everything, and every situation is different, and you can't just look at, white cop hits black assailant, or whatever civilian. You got to look beyond and see so that's why, like, y'all was getting mad every time y'all hear some white person say, well, what did he do? Or there's always the whataboutism, or what do you do? But sometimes those are valid questions, because like I said, when we saw that shooting where the that last mass shooting in Chicago, where the police had shot like 80-something, 90-something rounds at this guy, but he shot at them first. And so it's like, for you not to even mention that he shot at people first and go, oh, the police, they're overusing their force, that is a bad faith argument. It is creating so much hostility towards the police that is undeserved. And I'm sure they don't find that to be the most fulfilling part of their job. They don't feel like officials respect them. And, you think about you saving your boss's life every day. Literally, you get up every day and you take a bullet for your boss, or you, put yourself in harm's way, and you're out here doing the most dirty, the dirtiest, hardest job you could do. And then this person gets on TV and says, they are so horrible. We need to take their funding away. They need better training. They're racist. They're racist, and they're misogynists, and they're bigots, and they're Nazis and white supremacists. Are you going to get up with the same fervor to protect that same politician every day, or that same neighborhood every day, when those people are calling you all those same names? I don't think so. Y'all ready to walk off y'all jobs for less. Hell, the FDA is out here quitting because RFK Jr. then took over. But y'all so passionate about what you do and the scholarship, like Eric Adams said on The View. If, as a police officer, I'm dedicated to that job. I love America. I love my city. I'm not going to quit my job because I don't like the commissioner. I'm not going to quit working at the FDA knowing I might be the only thing that's stopping this so-called wacko RFK Jr. from, completely ruining the health of millions of people in the U.S., if not globally, right? If I'm so sure that he's coming in to, be a bull in a china shop and just tear up everything we've worked for, I'm not going to just walk out of there. I'm going to stick around and make sure I'm in there signing off, authorizing, saying, hey, wait a minute. And so that's all virtue signaling to me. But back to the police, they can't do that. A lot of these, especially legacy officers, they don't have it in them to just, quit and just give up and go cry about it. Like, they just not made like that. And then when you look at some of these younger cops, they're not in it for the same reasons. They don't have that passion, because look at how it was advertised to them. A lot of these young officers grew up watching the Trayvon Martin situation. They grew up watching, Laquan McDonald situation. They grew up watching Derek Chauvin and George Floyd. So why would they have the same zeal and the same attachment and the same loyalty to the force that older officers have, when they've had, no chance to really find the joy and the respect in that job? So 72% of officers have become less willing to stop and question people who seem suspicious. So you got black people cussing the cops out, cops scared to pull out their weapon and do what they got to do when it needs to be done to save themselves or others. And then you got cops, 72% of them, less willing to stop and question somebody suspicious. That's them not doing their whole damn job. And you think this is what they want to do? 86% say police work is harder today as a result of high profile incidents. Like, I'm not buying it. Oh, they're just mad because people want accountability, and so they're just throwing a tantrum and they're not doing their job. No, because you see that the ones who don't want to do it in the environment, they still do it. They just go do it somewhere where it's a lot more tolerable, where people are a lot more respectful of the sacrifices that they're making. So yeah, Aurora got hip to the game. And so yeah, I just kind of am working on a theory here, but I'm really feeling like, these police involved incidences end up exacerbating an already divisive and partisan media. And then the public outcry, which, is going to follow, especially when there's so much propaganda, right? And then when I talk about the media, I'm not only talking about the Democratic Information Machine, which is MSNBC, CNN, all of those guys. I'm talking about the churches, because if you're saying that incidences between blacks and the police have gotten worse, you do have to kind of look at where blacks exclusively get some of their information. And black churches are a whole other thing. Sermons don't work how they work in other churches. And there's a lot of latitude that a lot of these preachers take, especially when they've become very cozy with certain politicians. And so when we're talking about the media, we have to look at churches, because they get their talking points from the news, they get their talking points from other politicians, and they may be influenced by things that have nothing to do with God. And so we have to look at that. And so here, from the public outcry and the media sensationalization, I think that those police reforms kind of come out, but then that also comes hand in hand with some demoralization, because when you think about it, if you think you're doing your job well and there's this one bad apple, but everyone's up in an uproar about it, now they want to dismantle all the things that work for you, or some of the things that work for you, without even asking your input, or you feel like, in a very unfair manner, just kind of painting you all with a broad stroke, you are going to be demoralized. I mean, that happens at any job. When you're on a team and you're working on a job and you're on a team and one person is holding the team back and then that whole team gets punished, you don't like it. So it's the same thing. Mutual distrust then comes out of that between the police and community, because of course the police are gonna feel like, well, y'all did this to us, and y'all are the reason we even had to use force or whatever, or the community sees more of the stuff going on, and then they see that they had to reform, and so that's just like a conviction, that in itself is kind of a conviction by default. It was like, well, why they have to reform? Well, because they did something wrong. And so then now that that insinuates even more distrust, in the community, and it initiates more of the incidences, because now you have a combative community and a combative police force back in the community with no intervention, with no healing, with no real communication. And someone needs to address it. And you would think it'd be our mayors, but they're too busy trying to force themselves into funerals that they're not welcome to, instead of sitting down with people where it matters, which is with the legislation, which is with the budgeting, which is with the policy, and doing the right thing. But if he's not even going to satisfy the consent decree, and then still disrespect the police, and then still not pay attention to why you're losing all these officers, we're going to be in a very bad situation. And so I will look into this further, because I did find some information on how often pastors discuss the election, the pandemic, and racism in the fall of 2020. But I'll save that for another time. And we'll talk about, just how. Actually, we'll put that in the next video, so you can tune in. That'll be the next link video. Thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for sharing. As always, I'm so glad that you join me, and please take part in this discussion. I'm trying to build a community and find the answers, because I don't have them all either. I like to ask questions, and I hope that you can ask some too, and we can keep the thoughts rolling, because honestly, we need to be our own think tanks, and we need to solve some of these problems that we're faced with every day, because if we don't do it, who will? All right. Thank you again. Bye.